Hi everyone, this is Sarah Wagner for acrylicpouring.com, and today we're going to be going over the very basics of color theory. If you've ever taken any kind of an art class, you're probably familiar with the concept of color theory and specifically the color wheel. Today we're going to be going into a little bit more depth, not any advanced topics here, but maybe more of a refresher course to talk about primary colors, secondary colors, tertiary colors, and how knowing what each of these is can help you to avoid the dreaded muddy pour. So here we have a very basic color wheel, and we're going to go over what each of these colors means. So first, let's talk about primary colors. On the color wheel, your primary colors are going to be red, yellow, and blue. Primary means that these colors can't be created by combining any of the other colors on the color wheel. These colors simply cannot be made. These are colors that you will use to make other colors. So as long as you have your primary colors, you've kind of opened yourself up to a whole world of tertiary and secondary colors. Now, secondary colors are going to be orange, purple, and green. These colors are secondary because they can be created directly using a combination of two primary colors. So for example, blue and yellow are combined to make green, red and yellow are combined to make orange, and red and blue are combined to make purple. Again, the best thing about secondary colors is that if you have all three primary colors, you'll always have the secondary colors. Now, mixing primaries in varying amounts will yield different secondary shades for the ultimate customization. So you can take a little more red, mix it with your yellow, and come out with a really nice fiery orange. It's really customizable, and if you haven't done so yet, take a few minutes to just experiment with the way that these colors play with each other and mix. Next, we have tertiary colors. So those are going to be combinations of a secondary color and a primary color. So tertiary colors are red and orange, which makes vermilion, red and purple, which makes magenta, yellow and orange, which will make amber, blue and green, which is teal, blue and purple, which is violet, and yellow and green, which makes chartreuse. So this can be a little bit confusing, especially when you are starting to consider tertiary, and then you can even go farther with quaternary colors. But once you have a grasp on these three categories specifically, you're going to be well on your way to predicting the outcome of your pour. Another reason for a muddy pour would be over-swiping, tilting, or manipulating at any time. So here I have an example of a muddy pour that I did. So I got a little overzealous. I put my colors on here, they were looking pretty great, and then I thought I could swipe this. So I did. And then I thought, I could swipe this again. And about 4 or 5 swipes later, this is what happened. Now, it's not ugly, but I did lose pretty much all of my original colors. It's hard to believe by looking at this, but I had used red, I used this really beautiful gold, I used yellow, teal, green. I mean, I used pretty much every color I could get my hands on. And this is the result. So this is what happens if you over manipulate. You don't want to do that. Now, it's really difficult because if it looks really pretty every single time you swipe it, you're going to be tempted to keep swiping it, and there's really no good way to know when to stop. You just have to understand the color wheel, understand that you can use a lot of different colors in a pour, but it cuts down your ability to manipulate, I would say, into a third of what it could have been. So just understand that if you are going to use a lot of colors at once, that's fine, but you can really only manipulate a little bit. Tilt to cover the edge of your canvas or your wood in this case, swipe once, but don't go any further than that or you're definitely going to ruin the painting. Unless you're looking for a muddy painting, in which case you would be great. So now let's take a look at how these colors actually mix together. I've got the 3 primary colors here. I've got Liquitex Basics Cadmium Red. I have Liquitex Basics Cadmium Yellow, and my personal favorite blue, I have Nicole's Craft Studio Bright Blue. So I'm going to get set up, and then I'm going to show you how these colors all play together. All right, so let's get started by just putting our primary colors into 3 cups here. So first we'll start with the red. And if you haven't worked with Liquitex Basics before, they're pretty thick, so just keep that in mind if you're using it in a pour. I'm not going to be diluting these today. We're simply just going to be looking at what the colors look like when they're mixed. So we'll get some red in here. It's a very pretty bright red. And we'll grab our yellow. And bright blue. Now this is going to look a little bit different because the Nicole's Craft paint is pretty thin as it is. So there we go. All right, so now we've got our 3 primary colors, and now it's time to mix them together to make our secondary colors. So let's take a look here. We're going to start with orange. We're going to do orange in this cup here. So I'm going to take some of my red, get it in there, and a pretty good amount of yellow. Remember that when you're mixing a darker color with a lighter color, you want to be more sparing on the dark color than the light color. At least to start out with, because the darker color is going to always be more predominant. Now I'm going to get these mixed. As you can see, we're getting a nice fiery orange in there. I'm going to mix a little bit more of the yellow in there. I like a really bright orange. All right, so I've got this nice fiery orange I've created here. Now, there we go. So we've got our orange here, and you see that it's a little bit more on the red side. I did put quite a bit of red in there, but I like my oranges to be more on the red side as opposed to the yellow side. I love the brightness of that. So there we go. Okay, so that's our orange. And let's get a clean piece of paper towel here. Okay, so put our orange over here. The next one we're going to be making is some green. So I'm going to pour a little blue in here because this craft paint is pretty thin, so I don't need to worry about scooping that out. Now we're going to take the rest of our yellow. And then we're going to mix it up. You can see that we're starting to get our green in there. A nice bright green, and there's a lot of yellow in here, so this is going to be more on the yellow side. So remember, we took our yellow, right? We took our blue, this nice bright blue, and from these 2 colors, we've made a yellow green. So very nice tropical kind of palm tree green. Okay. And again, depending on the concentration of colors that you're mixing in, you're going to get a different concentration of one or the other. So in this case, I did a little bit more yellow. Had I added more blue, this would be more of like almost a jewel tone. So that's completely up to you. Now, for our last one, we're going to be making purple. So I'm actually going to, instead of using this, I'm going to take my blue and I'm going to add my red to it because I like it to be a little bit more on the blue side. So let's add some red in there. I'll start combining them. Now I find when I'm mixing my purple that the red takes over quite a bit. But we've already got a really nice purple, kind of a grape purple in there. Okay, so let's take a look. We've got our red. And we've got our blue. Okay. And now mixing them, here's the nice purple that we've got. It's kind of like a beautiful wine purple. All right. So let's clean this up, and then I'll show you a few examples of what you can do with primary colored pours. All right, so now that we've seen how these colors mix together, let's take a look at a few practical examples. So here's a good example of a pour that I did using only yellow, blue, and red, and a little bit of gold. Now you can see that I've got pretty much every color in the rainbow here, and that is the awesome part about using just the primary colors, your red, your yellow, and your blue. You have the capacity to come out with a rainbow colored pour, and it's really beautiful. And again, this all depends on the concentration of colors that you use. You can see that I use quite a bit of yellow here, and I also use quite a bit of blue. So I've got a lot of purples, I've got a good amount of yellow in here, and some greens along the side. So this is one of my favorite pours to do because I love the rainbow effect that you get. It almost reminds me a little bit of an oil slick. If an oil slick was pretty, this is what it would look like. So now let's take a look at a monochromatic pour. My first tree ring pour I ever did was monochromatic, with the exception of using white and gold. For the rest of it, however, I used 3 different shades of blue. I used a deep navy blue. I also used a lighter sky blue, and then I used kind of this medium, it's very close to the bright blue. And you can see that it's very pretty. It's not boring. And I think that that's what a lot of people think when they think of a monochromatic pour, is that that means it's going to be boring. But I promise you, it doesn't mean that at all. You can see that there's quite a bit of character to this, and the pop of gold in it really does help. So if you're doing a monochromatic pour, of course, we're excluding white, and we're excluding accent colors like the metallics. But try it, give it a try. Try 3 shades of any color, and I promise you won't be disappointed, especially if you're doing a tree ring pour like this. The last type of pour that I'd like to show you is a color combination of using 3 adjacent colors. In this case, I used red, orange, and yellow to create a very fiery sunset over which I ended up painting a landscape. But as you can see, using these colors together is great. And you don't just have to, this is not limited to sunset colors. You can use this on your color wheel if you take a look. You can use purple, blue, and green together, and you're going to get a really amazing kind of like tropical underwater paradise sort of thing. Or you can use these fiery colors, or you can mix it up a little bit. Use red, purple, and blue. If you use these 3 colors here, you're going to come out with a really neat kind of forest theme. So I definitely would recommend playing around with these color combinations and show us what you do with them. If you create a really neat landscape, if you create a tree ring pour, whatever you create, let us know. We'd love to see it. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at acrylicpouring.com. Comment on this post, or you're always welcome to join our group. Acrylicpouring.com has its very own group on Facebook with lots of members that are always willing to answer any questions that you have. So that'll be it for the basics of color theory. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Acrylic Pouring's channel to get more awesome videos.